My guest today is Dr. Amy Abernathy, the Principal Deputy Commissioner and Acting Chief Information Officer at the Food and Drug Administration. Amy, welcome to the program.
It's great to be here.
Today we're talking about the effort you guys have been doing to really modernize, to improve the FDA systems and infrastructure, networks, all of the above. But I'm going to start with the cloud because that seems to really underpin a lot of what everybody across government is doing. Let's just talk about your strategy to move to the cloud and some of the current efforts that you have underway.
So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to talk about this today. It's really important for what we're doing at FDA. Our cloud strategy is intended to make the use of the cloud easy, fast, and cost-effective. And that's because our cloud strategy underpins our entire IT modernization and data strategy. And in order to get there, there are three core elements: access, use, and security. So first, let me focus on access. We're doing this by fundamentally rethinking our traditional network design, which historically assumed that everything would be internal and protected by this hard, secure perimeter. And now we need to move to a new environment where data and people may be literally anywhere. And this distinction of what's inside and outside is blurred. And with the pandemic and teleworking, we can't even really assume our employees or those of sponsors, stakeholders, and partners are necessarily going to be in their buildings or facilities. And it forces us to completely rethink our network. We're using concepts such as software-defined networking and zero trust principles in our new design. And the goal behind the new network design is to make it really easy but secure and be able to collaborate with people and data anywhere and at any time. That then takes me to the second core principle, which is use. And this second leg of our strategy is to make it really easy to use the cloud. We're taking a product or package service approach, and instead of every cloud activity being looked at as a custom project, we're looking at common use cases and creating package services that can be deployed really in easy, self-service, kind of automated ways that give the customer the majority of the capabilities that they need, and then we can layer on top or customize for the remainder of their needs. This package service concept helps us both accelerate and standardize what we do in the cloud and really starts to accelerate our move to cloud. The final leg, the third principle, security. Hugely important to us at FDA. And as we contemplate a collaborative environment where people and data that they need have to be able to access each other anywhere, it's really vitally important that we maintain security and trust in that distributed world. We are focused on concepts such as zero trust networking in order to move to this new environment in a trustworthy and secure way.
All right, a lot to unpack there. Let me back up and let me start with access. One of the things that I know, talking to previous FDA CIOs, Todd Simpson is the one that comes to mind, of course. And Todd obviously was at the HHS headquarters, recently went to VA. And one of the things, he was a big proponent of really getting FDA to the cloud. So when you became acting CIO, you guys were already there to some extent, and you just took that last mile or last couple miles?
Yeah, so this is not to say we had not embraced the cloud at all, but rather how do we accelerate the move towards the cloud? And how do we do so in a way that's packaged so that our customers inside the agency can understand what we're doing? So we need to be able to communicate to our agency customers and then our stakeholders outside the agency why we're moving to the cloud and what the solutions look like so that they can understand them. We need to make sure that we have pressure tested what is going to work and package it in a way that can now be served up to our customers. And I think that the thing that you're hearing me say as I talk about our acceleration to the cloud is that a core additional focus has been on the customer. Because we can say we want to do it, but until we actually have a move towards the cloud that our customers, which mean internal customers of the agency and stakeholders outside of the agency, understand what we're doing and why, it's really hard to make that move.
You talk about this idea of access, fundamentally rethinking our network redesign. You talk about SDWAN, zero trust. Where are you with those priorities? Is it just at the beginning stages? Are you using, for instance, the Enterprise Infrastructure Solutions contract, the EIS contract from GSA to really relook at your network? Where are you down that path?
Jason, I think that that's going to be one that we really want to move to our chief technology officer to kind of really break that down at another future conversation.
Interestingly enough, that when we talk about the cloud, you're also talking about this common approach, the standardization. I think that's a key piece to that acceleration you talked to. Is roughly, do you have percentages? Do you have an idea of you're about halfway there, quarter way there, mostly there? Do you get a sense?
So I'm trying to think about how I put it in percentages. When I first joined FDA as CIO, the idea of packaging as a service approach, sort of the product approach, was something that was being actively discussed as our IT organization, but we were still in the infancy stage, really trying to think about now what does that mean and how do we deploy it. Over the course of the year, we have not only developed the processes and the services to do so, we've also made sure that we have the governance framework across the entire agency. We put that in place. So that was a key element of actually going from talking about a product and package solution to making it doable. We've really put in, as I said, the customer service approach. So now going back to your core question, which was, could I quantify the percentage of the way there? I think that we're probably in the maturation, maybe in teenagehood, not fully in adulthood yet, but we've made a lot of progress in both how we're going to package the services and how we'll deploy them, and now being able to deploy them, as well as having the governance framework to make sure that that's doable.
You can never underestimate good governance. You don't want cloud sprawl. I talk to CIOs all the time who worry about this idea of, well, I know who's going to the cloud and how they're going to it. And everyone takes a little bit of a different approach. It sounds like you guys have a good focused approach going forward, which actually it's a great kind of segue to this idea of cloud, long-term, short-term priorities, moving applications, moving services. Do you kind of have a priority list, if you will, about what path you're on?
Well, I mentioned before that the priority list is really structured around our concepts of access, use, and security. And that's the foundation. And really, as we think about any new strategic initiative, we ask the first question, can we consider the cloud as a key foundation for this new strategic initiative? And how might we go about that? So we prioritize legacy and our on-prem mission critical capabilities that are coming to end of life. And rather than doing like-for-like upgrades in our on-prem environment, we look towards how can we move those to the cloud. And so, practically speaking, as we get to end of life or close to end of life, that's our highest priority. We then also look for opportunities to how we can rapidly retire many of our data centers. When I first arrived at FDA, it sort of generally surprised me, I'll say, that we had at least 5 data centers. And now we're working on mapping a path to getting us quickly to 2. And applications or environments that release our data center space, and practically speaking, those that release the most data center space, that gets the next level of priority for us. We see this move to the cloud to be a long-term plan, and what we've been doing is essentially taking steps down the path of our plan in a prioritized nature and asking, what should we do first? And that's what, like the end of life activities, what do we do second? How do we release data center? And then also, how do we make sure that our customers all across the FDA are also getting comfortable with this move to the cloud?
You sound like you'll be in that hybrid environment for quite a while. You'll have certain things that will go obviously to the public cloud, probably a government only cloud, and then also obviously keep things in-house. When you talk about, because which clouds are created equal, right? You keep it in-house, that's a cloud in itself. You might have moved to a government only or a public. What's that decision like? Can you walk me through maybe some of your thought process?
Yeah, there are a number of things that go into our general approach to thinking about the cloud and making sense for specific applications. So the first is around capabilities. This needs to be business driven. Just like applications and vendors, we know what we'll have to create for a specific environment where multiple clouds can coexist and work transparently and securely. So we think about what are the capabilities there that are going to be needed to allow that to happen. The second, always for us, is security and the level of security that's going to need to be built into different cloud services. And this is always going to be a key deciding factor for us, especially as we think about what needs to be stored where. For example, our high value assets, like how are we going to think about all those different aspects? The third is operational quality. The stability and reliability of a cloud provider is going to be a major factor governing our decisions. Practically speaking, this really matters to us because operational quality then allows us to get about the business of doing the rest of our work. And then the fourth is price and value. Finally, when I think about price and value, I internal at FDA always think about the fact that we are using our own dollars because we're all taxpayers to make judicious decisions. And so we try to think about it from the perspective of how do we get the best value, because we think about it from the perspective of I'm paying out of my own pocket in the same way I'm paying out of the pocket of every American.
One of the things that I've heard time and again about kind of this approach is how business has really risen to the top. And more CIOs I talk to, really point that out. What does the business need? How do we meet the operational, the mission needs? Is that something that you get a sense, and I'm not sure, you have to remind me how long you've been at FDA for, is that something that's changed over the last 3, 5, 7 years? Or is this something that maybe the FDA was culturally always had that focus on? Because a lot of times people say, well, is it IT for IT's sake? You probably have heard that.
Yeah. So let me anchor how long I've been at FDA, because that'll help with my answer. So I joined FDA during the government shutdown. So February 2019, that's the way I remember it. And took on the role of acting CIO in April of 2019. So just a little over a year ago. That's important because it's given me enough time to think about core strategy and how we're going to do our IT modernization going forward. But I don't have a long history of understanding what had been some of the business decisions made at FDA before then. The other thing to know is that I came from the health tech industry. So had fundamentally been working in a health tech startup before coming to the FDA. Despite the fact that I'm an oncologist and have a clinical and academic background, I also have a health tech background, and building software and solutions outside of the government space for quite a while, and so came with that lens as well. So your question was as it relates to how do we build a customer-driven strategy, and when I walked into FDA, we had not had the opportunity to truly build a strategy for some number of years because we had shifting CIOs. And that meant that it was a white space with respect to the opportunity to design a strategy that was customer focused, but also had a really a view to where is healthcare going, where is FDA going, and where does scalability go, that isn't really about IT for IT, but IT is a solution set to get us there.
All right, welcome to the government. We're shut down.
That was my first day.
That's be a fun story for another time. But first, we're going to take a quick break. My guest today is Dr. Aby Abernethy, the Principal Deputy Commissioner and Acting CIO at the Food and Drug Administration. I'm Jason Miller, and you're listening to Ask the CIO, sponsored by Vion and Dell on Federal News Network.